I love conspiracy. When I started VOR, I planned to do kind of a conspiracy channel. If you've seen KJ's Scariest Movie Ever, I was going to do something like that. Biblically based conspiracy. But the first account on TikTok went nuclear and then was shut down. The second account was doing really well, and I kept getting violations. Then we made the your ancestors are or our ancestors are superheroes video, got 5 million views. The account went bonkers, and we just talked about it strategically and said we're getting away from conspiracy, political, economic, historical conspiracy, and covering the conspiracy that is the hiding of our true history, our true identity as children of the Most High God, made in the image of God, and the historical account of this universe being the Word of God, the Bible. And according to the Bible, the devil runs the world system. We all know the story. Jesus was brought to a high place by Satan. He showed him all the kingdoms of the world, and he said, if you work for me, I will put you in charge of this whole system. And Jesus said, nay. I'm paraphrasing. Well, what you have is, in my opinion, individuals who either literally or proverbially are in bed with the devil. They make a deal, a Faustian bargain to, sell out their brothers and sisters, get the money, get the fame, and they have to play ball, the devil's ball game, which is getting people to not believe in the God of the Bible, getting them to suffer and hate their life, etc. And the people in charge do this. So people try to say, who is it, this guy, is it that guy, is this? It doesn't matter who the guy is, because it's like Agent Smith. When one of them goes down, another one respawns. Somebody's always going to take that deal. Well, what we're going to cover tonight is a conspiracy that I wasn't aware of until about 6 months ago. And the reason I'm covering this conspiracy is it checks all the boxes for me. It's the God of the Bible. It's John D. Rockefeller. It's lies, manipulation of science, pseudoscience and misinformation, getting people to not believe in the Bible and also make them very poor and potentially sick. So it checks all the boxes for me. I've covered Rockefeller quite a bit. Any good conspiracy theorist would. What we're covering tonight is the great fossil fuel lie. People have probably seen my TikTok video. Maybe you've seen, what's his name? Fletcher Prouty talk about this. Basically, when I kind of beat the drum of everything you were taught is wrong. It's one of our shirts, by the way, designed by my wife. You can get it on our merch page. Get it. Start a discussion with your family. What could go wrong? So many of the things that we thought we knew are lies. They're lies. And there's multiple reasons why we're paying an arm and a leg for gasoline right now, heating oil, etc. Supply chain issues, global politics, things like this. But foundationally, fundamentally, we are overpaying for petroleum because of the lie about its origin, what it is, how it got here. This lie is creating artificial scarcity and allowing the people who make the money off of the oil to make more money than they probably should. And yes, this lie, baked into it, is something that goes in the textbooks to basically force everyone to disbelieve in the Bible. So, should be about an hour. I've got a bazillion tabs. Hopefully we can keep a stream of consciousness here. But yeah, we're going to cover John D. Rockefeller and his brilliant move to create artificial scarcity with fossil fuels. It'll be who Rockefeller is. So if you're tuning in on YouTube and you want to see if you're interested in this video, it'll be who Rockefeller is, what all he did, how he made his money, how he made a million on his money because of this lie, what the lie is, how the media used it through propaganda, up until very recently, maybe still using it, and how the Bible actually refutes this lie. Can you believe it? John D. Rockefeller comes up with a thing that's a mistruth. It's a lie, and the Bible, which is truth, is the truth, refutes it. You could have read the Bible and said, John D. Rockefeller, you're lying. Or maybe John D. Rockefeller read the Bible and said, I'm going to make something that makes the Bible look like a lie. So that's what we're going to cover, and I think it should be fun. It's going to be kind of lighthearted. Though it's a heavy subject, I think I'm going to have some fun with it. So, okay. Point number 1. How do you control someone? Rather, how do the people in charge control us? It's a tactic that will always work. When you look at things like The Art of War, or you look at Bernays, or even Goebbels, or any of these kind of long-term strategies that are executed on us, they follow these archetypes. They follow these processes that will always work. The Bible says nothing new under the sun. And this system of control goes like this. You tell the people what to believe, which means you have to control the narrative of what it is they're believing. Then you gaslight them if they disbelieve, bully them, censor them, to keep this narrative in play. Now, they did this in Egypt. I use this example quite a bit. They used to say that the sun was God. Now, there was 3 levels of belief. It's complicated. But the people at the top didn't believe it. The priests didn't believe it. The lay people did. The people at the top told the priests what to teach the people below them, and everybody believed a different thing. Okay? The priests of Egypt believed in Sirius, the dog star, which was basically Lucifer. The priests believed that the Pharaoh, the kings, were God. And the narrative that the priests would teach to the people was that the sun was God. This is how complicated all of this is. It's a spectrum of information. And it goes from truth to anti-truth and everything in the middle. And they play us buying and selling. So the people believed that Ra, the sun god, was watching them. What's his name? Nimrod did the same thing. He was the sun god. Semiramis, his wife, was the moon god. So one of them was always watching. Nimrod and Semiramis are Isis, Osiris. Same archetypes. Names changed after the Bible, but it always works. Well, what they would say is, the sun is watching you, and if you don't do what we say, give us your children, give us your money, obey the god, kings, the sun will be mad, and it will leave you. Well, they had more information about the mechanism of the universe than the lay people. They controlled that narrative, i.e. science. And they knew about the movements of the sun and the moon, and they knew when solar eclipses would happen. So they would say, if you don't do this thing by this day, Ra's going to be pissed off, watch. And then there would be a solar eclipse. Pandemonium in the streets. We thought they were lying. We thought they were just doing this for politics. But look, Ra just left. Here, take my kid, take my whatever. So this will always work to control you. And they used religion as long as they could. They would say, we are God. And then when that didn't work, they would say, well, we're not God, but we represent God. Our priests represent God. Right? And then they used this false flag attack of religion. This is really complicated stuff, but they would rule everybody tyrannically with a theocracy. We saw this in the Dark Ages recently. What the Dark Ages? Anyways. And so people end up getting bitter and sore about it, and they leave religion and revert over to secularism, which is what happened through the Dark Ages and then the Age of Enlightenment. And in this scenario, so it's like, okay, we're God, and they're like, wait, you're not God. So that lasts a few hundred years. And it's like, well, we represent God. And they're like, eventually like, well, you don't represent God. You're just being a political, opportunistic tyrant. And then they go, well, we can't do this whole God thing in religion because this is really bad. So then they introduce secularism, the Age of Enlightenment. And this is what we're in today. And this will work for X amount of years. It seems to be just doing just fine. This is where the whole trust of science narrative comes in. And they'll do this for whatever. 50 years, 100 years, 500 years. And then eventually they'll run us into a tyrannical, secular, maniac doom that I keep saying. And then spiritualism will come back. And they'll go, we can't go purely secular because that was what C.S. Lewis was afraid of, was scientific technocracy. And then it'll do it again. Because we're devolving, okay? We're getting worse every generation. Our brains, our bodies. I know our technology is getting better, which is artificially propping up our lifespan. But if the devil could pull this off to Adam, and the devil could pull this off to whatever, and people in 0 AD, if that was a thing, he can pull it off today because we're becoming more naive, and now we're not even connected to our ancestors. And that, chain of custody of information. Sorry, I know it's a lot. What does that have to do with John D. Rockefeller? Well, they're employing the same tactic here about fossil fuels, about the universe. How did the universe get here? When did the universe get here? Well, we know it wasn't the God of the Bible, right? Charles Lyell, uniformitarianism, was trying to free science from Moses. We know it's not the God of the Bible. It's deep time. Bible says 7,500 years, if you believe in Septuagint. Translation, 6,000 if you believe in the Masoretic text. So let's say billions and trillions of years. So Rockefeller used his science men to enforce the idea of deep time by saying that fossil fuels are from dead, once living things that got buried in heat and pressure and all these things. And in doing this, he created scarcity. So again, they tell you what to believe using either the religious individuals, the priests, or science. When I say science is a religion, this is what I mean. Science is a religion. And the scientists in the lab coats, the Neil deGrasse Tysons, Michio Kaku's, Sam Harris's, whatever, they're the priests of the religion of science. So they tell you, Rockefeller science men, what to believe about fossil fuel. They use propaganda to support it. They gaslight and bully and censor anyone who talks about it. And then people can't really question it. Watch how this all fits together. Okay, so let's start off a little bit of history on John D. Rockefeller. I would say more, but I'm trying to say this in a sustainable way. John D. Rockefeller built our education system. Again, this is nuanced. It was the Prussians' compulsory education system that Horace Mann originally modeled the system in New England after, and then Rockefeller came through and threw all of his money at this thing and built the education system. Because if you want to really control people, you get the children. Ask the guy in Germany in the 40s. You start with indoctrinating them. You put them in the education system and you teach them what to think. You teach them how to think. Rockefeller needed more widget makers. You've seen the quote. I don't need a nation of thinkers. I need a nation of workers, which he did because he wanted to make a lot of money, but people had to work at minimum wage to make him that money, right? Ultimate pyramid scheme. They're making $5 an hour, $3 an hour, whatever. He's making $5 an hour off of them, and the more people he has working, the more money he gets. So he employed Sir Frederick Gates, I believe his name is, the Country School of Tomorrow. They dictated the whole thing. 3 to 5 generations from now, they're going to walk away from their agrarian life and their farms, their multi-generational, low-overhead, sustainable farms, their agrarian life, and they're going to come to the Steel City and make whatever Rockefeller was selling. So he started the General Education Board, which is to teach you what to think, but really to teach you how to think. All we are is just another brick in the wall. Hey, teachers, leave those kids alone. Not a huge Pink Floyd fan, but they nailed that one. Rockefeller builds the General Education Board. He also built the MD system. You guys know this. We had allopathic and homeopathic medicine. Homeopathic was supplements in nature, natural things, vitamins, minerals. It's very similar to what is kind of going on today with functional medicine. But that's hard to make a buck on because stuff's everywhere. You can grow plantains in your backyard. You dandelions. They want you to spray glyphosate on them, but you eat them and they're good for you. Like, how are you going to make money on this? So he basically did a media blitzkrieg and labeled homeopathic medicine quackery. And the only people who would be certified, bona fide doctors would be people with Rockefeller's certificate of achievement and complicity, right? MD system, AMA, he created it. And he killed homeopathic medicine. It's a pretty big deal. You start education, medical, pretty good start. But how do you get the overhead to do such a thing? It takes a lot of money to literally take over the world. Control everybody, what everybody thinks, what they spend their money on, if they're healthy or not. So how did he make his money? Rockefeller created the Standard Oil Company, the success of which made him the world's first billionaire. And a celebrated philanthropist. Oh boy, he gave away the most money ever. Yeah, look at where he gave his money to. The Rockefeller Foundation. To further his medicine and science. Science, when I talk about who funds science, well, a lot of Rockefeller money and Carnegie money and Peabody money and all these things. They teach you what to think, as I was saying earlier. How do you control people? You tell them what to believe. How do we tell them what to believe? It was priests, now it's scientists, which are also just priests of the religion of secular science. I'm going to say that over and over, because if this was a test, I want you to be able to get that answer right. How do you make money on oil? Well, there was a lot of things here converging. You had, it wasn't just this fossil fuel thing. That just helped. That was just, it's just very good process, a very good strategy to double, triple the price of oil and also control the narrative on it down the road through basically fear. But the Industrial Revolution was happening. Petroleum had already always existed. It was in springs and bubbling up, and people used it for oil and stuff. It wasn't a novel thing. They just had a really good use for it. So he makes his money on oil. Now, I'm going to show you kind of quickly. This is another YouTube video. Obviously, I didn't need to say that. But this is, I'm going to play it at 1.5 speed. But we're just going to watch a little bit of the chicanery and the tomfoolery. They should call it John foolery. Rockfoolery. That he was engaging in, which was basically corporate espionage. Like a lot of the antitrust laws, a lot of the anti-monopoly things, these came from the absolutely scandalous things that Rockefeller was doing. So it's important for you to see kind of his business tactic, his, what would you say? His his methodology, his spirit, his opportunistic, cutthroat tactics that he would employ. So we're going to watch this really quick, and then we're going to get into the fossil fuel thing. Hopefully, it's going to be really quick. It's going to be 1.5. Hopefully, you'll be able to understand the guy. He's going to be talking fast. Fast guy. Here we go.
18 years old. But then in 1859, something happened that would change his life forever. Just 100 miles east of Cleveland, the first American oil well had been discovered. This marked the beginning of the Pennsylvania oil rush, and within a year, 4,500 barrels of oil would be produced. Now, back then oil wasn't quite as valuable as it is today. Gasoline cars hadn't been invented yet, but oil could still be processed into kerosene, which people would then use in lamps. John realized, however, that the biggest profits to be had weren't in drilling for oil, but in refining it. He witnessed many people going bust before striking oil, so he knew that the business was too risky for him. Instead, he'd let others go through the hassle of finding the oil, and he would just buy it off of them. John had to wait until 1863 for the government to build a rail line connecting the Pennsylvania oil fields to Cleveland. But when that line was built, John was ready for it, with a long line of partners and banks ready to back him up. He also assembled a team of seasoned chemists and engineers, who not only optimized the refining process, but also discovered various uses for the byproducts of refining petroleum. You see, the early refineries in Cleveland could only operate at about a 60% efficiency, but John not only increased that percentage, he also started selling all the byproducts, like paraffin wax, tar, and naphtha. Within 2 years, the Rockefeller refinery was worth over $70,000 and was among the largest in Cleveland. But John wasn't done. In 1865, there were 26 competing refineries, but within 5 years, John had acquired all but 4 of them. By this point, his business was getting too big to handle as a partnership, so in 1870 he incorporated as Standard Oil of Ohio. To convince the few remaining competitors in Cleveland, John would simply invite them over and show them his books, revealing that he could operate at a loss far longer than they could stay solvent. In exchange for a good buyout price, John would offer his competitors positions in his own company, thus placing the brightest minds in the industry under his control.
So this is why we have a lot of these anti-monopoly kind of rules put in place. And I'm no historian of economy, so I won't try and speak too far out of turn here. But basically, he had the capital and the savvy and the moxie to choke out all of his competition. He had the rail lines. He bought everything. He's like, what are you going to do? I'm going to take you over. You might as well take my pennies on a dollar deal and come work for me, because there's no other option. I will sink you, right? This is kind of the things that he was doing. And people hated this guy. I mean, it was very, if you look at all of like the little cartoons that people would draw, the political cartoons, he was a snake, and everybody was just had to deal with what he was willing to do in a scandalous way that other people wouldn't do.
Of course, not everyone would give up immediately, and over time, John eroded the price of oil and kerosene, sometimes by as much as 80%, in order to strangle competitors.
He controlled the price of oil.
Unsurprisingly, his strategy worked. By 1880, he had acquired refineries across the northeastern US, and was refining over 90% of the entire country's oil production. At this point, John was so powerful that he could invite the owners of the big rail companies and personally negotiate rebates for using their trains. But this practice of negotiating backroom deals really got the business world riled up. At the time, and still kind of today, most industrial goods were transported by rail, and many big industrialists got worried that John's abuse of transportation rebates could result in similar monopolization in their industries. Over the next decade, businessmen, politicians, and the media would attack Standard Oil with increasing ferocity. Legislators in Ohio began drafting antitrust regulations to bring down Rockefeller, but he was one step ahead. In 1882, he reincorporated in New Jersey, this time creating the Standard Oil Trust, which in turn held stakes in over 40 local companies. Then, to showcase his success, John built an impressive headquarters for his company on Broadway. This moment was the high point of Rockefeller's Standard Oil. He owned 20,000 oil wells, 4,000 miles of pipeline, and employed over 100,000 people. But his grip on the oil industry was loosening, both domestically and abroad. Massive oil deposits had been discovered in Russia and in Asia, and were being developed by the Rothschild family, which spared no effort in getting that oil to America. Worse yet, in 1890, the federal government passed the Sherman Antitrust Act, which officially gave politicians the teeth to go after the Standard Oil Trust itself. Of course, the complex legal structure behind all the companies was very difficult to investigate, which is why the government couldn't actually break up Standard Oil until 1911.
Okay, this gets us to 1911. I think a lot of you know that, and if not, well, there you go. It's a good YouTube channel. It's a good documentary, how Rockefeller built his $1 trillion oil empire. Now, obviously, you could just argue that he was just a smart guy. He's a really smart guy, really knew his stuff. Or you could argue that maybe he was making that Faustian deal that I had mentioned earlier. To me, this seems like a little bit more than just a standard guy would be able to put together. Now, I want to show you something that I found that's really cool. This is the World Economic Forum's. Yep, it's the World Economic Forum's thing. If I slide it down, will you be able to see it? No, it's not going to happen. Okay. Anyways, yeah, it's World Economic Forum. This is the history of oil prices, right? Spiky, boomy, crashy, tanky. And there's this pickup here. And obviously it fluctuates. But something happened here between 1891 and 1894. Prices were going down. Rockefeller had bought everything. And then we have this spike here. Well, I can't confirm this because the resources are scant related to it. But there's a version of history that states that at this time, in 1892, John D. Rockefeller sent his scientists to Geneva, the Geneva Convention, Geneva, Switzerland. Interesting that the World Economic Forum still meets there. And in this scientific global symposium, at the Geneva Nomenclature Congress, some of the foremost organic chemists of the late 19th century drafted a novel relationship between chemical substances, chemical diagrams, and chemical names that has shaped practices of chemical representation ever since. So they all got together and they said, what is it? What does it taste like? What does it smell like? What does it do? What is it named? How did it get here? And the story goes, very hard to vet this, that Rockefeller sent his science men. Remember earlier, he employed the greatest chemists and geologists, whatever he had. Rockefeller and his bankroll went there and said, fossil fuels are from dead things that died a long time ago, and we have a finite amount. The word fossil in Latin means to dig up. Doesn't mean a dead thing. It just means to dig up. It's the action of digging it up. The word petroleum means rock oil in Latin. These are the etymology of these words. Rock oil. So we knew that it was rock oil. We knew it was everywhere, and we knew we had to dig it up. But there was no pretense, no assumption that what had made it was some wild ecosystem that was covered under the earth 400 million years ago. That wasn't a thing. That wasn't a thing. Until, potentially, this Geneva Convention chemist consortium of history-making determinations about chemical substances. Promise you no one's ever said that series of words in a row like that. Okay. Going back to the World Economic Forum map, 1891, by 1894, the price had shot up considerably. So they have a thing here. Cholera epidemic cuts production in the Baku, Azerbaijan, contributing to the 1895 spike. Or Rockefeller pulled it off and convinced the world that we were running out of oil, and everybody started paying more for it. We don't know. This is kind of the idea. This is kind of the base of the conspiracy. But it's rooted in, and this is where we're going to go next with this. This is important for me. We're going to look at the official narrative. This is my area of specialty, what the scientific establishment is saying, their propaganda, how they took this lie and promulgated it for 130 years now. We're going to look at peak oil, totally a lie. We're going to look at their narrative over and over, 100 million years. And then we're going to look at what the Bible actually says, totally refuting this. So, if this is the kind of thing that you're into, I think you're going to like this. Let's start with, I'm going to use a joke here from Kent Hovind. This is, scroll this down a little bit, National Geographic. That's for you, Hovind. Petroleum. Petroleum, or crude oil, is a fossil fuel and is a non-renewable source of energy. If the National Geographic says it, it's probably the opposite of true. Okay? I didn't know why Kent was making that joke for many, many years. But it's like, it's one of the biggest propaganda, scientific, popular science propaganda, archaeologic, anthropologic media outfits in existence. So, if Reuters fact checks, that's not the one. That's also not the one. Did I lose it? Here we go. If Reuters fact checks that the term fossil fuel was not coined by John D. Rockefeller, and then National Geographic does a piece on it, confirming it, you could pretty much guarantee that this is probably anti-truth. Really quickly on the Reuters thing, I looked deep into this. I actually read, really quick, American businessman John D. Rockefeller did not coin the term fossil fuel to trick people into thinking oil was a rarity. Did not. Definitely did not. Basically, the argument here is that this guy named Caspar Newman used the word fossil fuel in these resources. Now, I've looked at each one of these, and I can't find the word fossil fuel. Now, this says fossil fuel up here, but I can't find it anywhere in the actual verbiage. This bituminous substances, I looked through 500 pages because I was going to do a video on fact-checking the fact-checkers. I can't find anywhere where he calls it a fossil fuel. But even if he did, fossil fuel just means it was dug up. So Reuters, of course, here is using misinformation, and they're claiming that the conspiracy is that Rockefeller coined the term fossil fuel. This Casper Newman guy may have coined the term, but it just would have meant to dig up fuel. The claim, and they do not touch it in here, is that Rockefeller sciencemen convinced the world that the fossil fuels were dead, ancient dead things. Anyways, I digress. National Geographic. Again, just kind of working backwards between Reuters and National Geographic. Pretty much want to go the other way with whatever they say. Petroleum, or crude oil, is a fossil fuel and a non-renewable source of energy. Back to etymology. Renewable means you can reuse it. Non-renewable means you cannot reuse it. It does not renew. This is something they hit on very hard. Oil does not renew. There's a finite amount. There's a finite amount. Period. That's all there is. Petroleum, also called crude oil, is a fossil fuel, like coal and natural gas. By the way, my own definition, I think coal was formed in the flood. Coal runs in seams, much closer to the surface, certainly looks like organic material, totally a different substance than petroleum. And we see potentially even like human trinkets coalified, and people can make coal very fast. So this is one of the ways they get you with the spectrum of information. I think coal was actually kind of what they want oil to be. Anyways, side note. Petroleum was formed from the remains of ancient marine organisms, such as algae, plants, and bacteria. Over millions of years, intense heat and pressure, millions of years of intense heat and pressure, these organic remains transformed into carbon-rich substances we rely on as raw materials for fuel and a wide variety of products. It is. Remember earlier I said they tell you what to believe? There's no room for error here. We believe it could be. I'm going to show you later. They have no idea. And they know they have no idea. Best case scenario, you could say, if they had a shred of intellectual integrity, they could say, we believe, or science says. Like the Oort cloud. I'd covered the Oort cloud. Science believes, no, is. Hey children, the Oort cloud is there. No, it's not. You just say it is. This is a lie. There's no integrity. Well, I engage with atheists all the time. And they go, hey, you just got to trust the science. You have to trust the science blindly. That's your citizenry. That's your duty. I think that's the word. Do, and duty. Maybe somebody edit that together to make it look funny. That's your duty as a citizen of the free and United States of America, is to trust the science blindly. Well, I've been cheated on. I've cheated on. I know liars. I have lied. If you're a known liar, you don't immediately get trusted for whatever you say. You don't get a credit. You don't get a tab. You pay cash. Known liars don't get to be blindly trusted. Science. Okay? This whole article is a lie. If they want to say, we call crude oil fossil fuel, which doesn't mean that it's fossils, it just means that it's dug up. And we believe petroleum was formed from the remains of ancient marine organisms over millions of years. Fine. Or science says. But no. Was formed from the remains of ancient marine organisms over millions of years. They have no idea. I don't know when this was written. But now they're basically like, yeah, we have no idea. And there's a bunch of other theories. It's a whole debate about this. It's the debate about, is oil renewable or non-renewable? It's the debate on, is oil created by life? Biogenic or abiotic? Is it because of life, biogenic from life, or abiotic, not life? We get abiogenesis, same idea. And there's a raging debate. Russia doesn't at all believe this, or at least some scientists in Russia. Nobody knows. Is it renewable? Is it filling up? Are we getting more? Do we have more than we had 100 years ago or 20 years ago? We don't know. They have no idea. National Geographic is absolutely full of it. A non-trustworthy publication. Non-trustworthy. I mean, if you want to believe liars that just spout pseudoscience and misinformation, fine. But that is not true. For shame. But they're not the only ones saying this. This is kind of a fun thing here. This is the dangers of misinformation. I get it. My account on TikTok is currently banned for misinformation. The danger of misinformation is using pseudoscience to convince people to believe something that isn't true. And it's real bad when you come after the kids. The amount of science, popular science kids programs that I've shared on this show, I could find between, Pachycetus turning into whales and where life came from and the Big Bang. It's fossils, where they came from. You've seen it if you've watched my show. Is embarrassing. Just tell the kids we don't know. Just tell the kids the leading theory is. Or just say we're liars. You do that. Hey, we're going to... Disclaimer at the beginning. Beep. We're totally lying to you and your kids right now. If you're a parent and you consent to this, watch away. Beep. Start transmission.
We've all heard that fossil fuels won't last forever, but why? And if they are set to run out, how much is left and when will that happen? To dig to the bottom of this one, we first need a quick refresher on how fossil fuels are created. And sadly, no, they're not mostly dead dinosaurs. You see, the vast majority of our fossil fuels come from the remains of plants and animals that lived around 300 to 400 million years ago. And we don't see the first dinosaurs until around about 230 million years.
You see this now? I mean, hopefully I'm getting you guys to see how I see the world, which, by the way, disclaimer, it's what I believe. I don't know. I don't want to be like them. But from my viewpoint, from my worldview, which I believe that the Bible is a trustworthy historical document, I'm a young earth creationist, and I'm a science skeptic. Full disclaimer. But now you can maybe hear my frustration with this grown man telling the kiddies to believe a lie.
Fuels are created.
How are they created?
And sadly, no, they're not mostly dead dinosaurs. You see, the vast majority of our...
You know what, actually? What? This is going to be fun. Their psychological operation, their psycho-abusive psychological operation is so extensive that they lie to you, tell you something, you believe it, and then they switch it up. And then they make fun of you for the thing you used to believe that they told you to believe. The dinosaurs turning into birds thing. I talked to that young guy on my TikTok lives, Aaron. He's like 23 or whatever, and just went through full indoctrination. And he's like, well, they're always birds. Avian dinosaurs, they're always birds. And I'm like, okay, fine. Then when I grew up and they told me that dinosaurs weren't birds, they were lying. So when I'm telling you that they're not birds because of what they told me and you're saying I'm stupid, I'm just believing what they told me when I was your age. This guy's whole thing, it's not dinosaurs. Why would you believe that dinosaurs turn into fuel? Some Mandela effect stuff going on here. Well, if you are Gen X or older, you remember being taught that oil came from dinosaurs. The Sinclair Motor Oil Company, dinosaur. Dino Fuels is another one of those. The green, brontosaurus. We believed this because you told us to believe this before your science changed. Guy, I know you're young, but it's not our fault that we believed what they told us 30 years ago. That's now changed. And if they could say, we're teaching you something like dinosaurs turned into oil, but that could be wrong, maybe we would be more open to the idea. Rather than, wow, I believed that. Who's lying to me? That's a fun game. Who's lying to me? Which one of you, which one of the stories that you're telling me is a lie? This is called cognitive dissonance. It's part of the psychological operation. They give you two different ideas and your brain can't reconcile them. And you go, what do I believe? And they tell you and you go, okay, I believe that, fine. Because I don't know. I don't know. The universe did create itself. It didn't create itself. It exploded. It didn't explode. It was an expansion. Whatever. What do I believe? They're dinosaurs. They're birds. They're not. There was whatever. What do I believe? I don't know. Just tell me. Here's what I'll tell you. What do I put on the test to get an A? Fine. That's what it is. Thanks for playing. Thanks for playing.
Fossil fuels come from, fuels are created. And sadly, no, they're not mostly dead dinosaurs. You see, the vast majority of our fossil fuels come from the remains of plants and animals that lived around 300 to 400 million years ago. And we don't see the first dinosaurs until around about 230 million years ago. So, when these plants and animals died, that very, very long time ago, they were covered in layers of earth or silt. And because of the combined actions of three things, one, the compression.
Stop the video. You'll see a theme here, and the theme is very, very, very long ago. The theme to this pseudoscience is definitely longer ago than the Bible, therefore the Bible is a fairy tale, is what they're saying. I'll read between the lines for you. This thing that happened long ago and far away, that's why this is a fairy tale. How is anyone watching this video, anyone alive that's not in the club, going to disprove their claim that 300 to 400 million years ago, some fictitious animal died in some fictitious way and then some fictitious event happened where they got covered up? When I say it's a religion, this is no different than your priest or your whatever saying, Ra is the sun and he's also God. Disprove it. What are you going to do? Fly and ask the sun? You need to get in a chariot like Icarus and go, hey, Ra. Where did the silt came from? Where did the silt come from? You ever think about that? You get everything dies on a tiny Earth, and a teeny tiny Earth. As you get quarter size of this Earth that we're in now, or 2/3 size, and then here comes what? Space dust, space debris. Just the Earth gets bigger because over time it just gets bigger. Layers come from where? What's funny? Maybe I should look this up really quick. I'm gonna do this. I'm throwing a penny in the well here. I shouldn't do this on a live show, but where do sedimentary layers come from? Layers come from. Hopefully I get this. Sedimentary rocks are formed from deposits of pre-existing rocks or pieces of once living organisms that accumulated on the Earth's surface. Now, this isn't exactly what I was looking for, but basically, the best I can find when you're talking about all these layers that are laid down somehow is dead material, dead animal, dead living things, and volcanoes. It's like, yeah, or meteors. So what happens? You got the smaller Earth, and then things die and volcanoes erupt, and then you got 40,000 feet. So the dead things die, and then other dead things die and cover them up, and then volcanoes. But whatever happened, it was definitely 400 million years ago, not the Bible's timeline. Definitely. Science. I'm basically convinced that the entire scientific complex is all the king's horses and all the king's men trying to disprove the Bible.
From the weight of all that stuff to the microorganisms in.
He said the weight of all that stuff. Let's go. What stuff?
Dinosaurs until around about 230 million years ago. So, when these plants and animals died, that very, very long time ago, they were covered in layers of earth or silt. And because of the combined actions of three things, one, the compression from the weight of all that stuff. Two, the microorganisms in there decomposing the content, and three, the heat underground, that transformed them into potential fuels. Coal is the remnant of ancient plants, whilst oil and natural gas mostly come from marine creatures, with natural gas being made in deeper, hotter regions where the oil gets a little bit more cooked. Now we dig or drill this stuff out of the ground, and because it has been accumulating for a long time, initially there was a lot, but because it takes so long to make, we're using it much, much faster than it can possibly be replaced. This means that there is effectively a fixed amount of fuel on Earth, and we're using it up. So, yes, fossil fuels are going to run out, but what is left, and when will that happen? Well, we can fairly
Okay. Fossil fuels are from organisms that died, and then other organisms and stuff covered them up, and then heat, whatever. Which means that it is a finite amount, and we are going to run out. Other than, that's entirely not true. Patently false. I'll show you why here in a second, but I do want to show you this. How does so much oil get trapped into the ocean? Okay, here's the deal. Stuff dies in the ocean, right? Are you following? And then stuff covers the ocean, covers it, and then heat and oil. And then an ocean covers it, because the oil is also underneath the ocean. I thought it was a problem trying to figure out where the dirt came from. An ocean is on it. An ocean is heavy. There's your weight. And then the ocean. Ocean. You ready for this? Let's just follow this logic. You ready? The marine plants and animals died. And then in the ocean, right? Because that's where the marine is. And then it was covered in silt. And then an ocean formed on it. And that's how the oil got in there. See? Science. Watch this. Watch. See. Let's see if you can pick up the cognitive dissonance. What? Watch this. And listen. Because unless you can read lips, it's going to be hard to understand it. Pick up. See, can you pick up, now that I'm trying to show you like what cognitive dissonance is and how they operate as they lie to the kids? Watch the cognitive dissonance. I actually asked my 8-year-old what this meant, and he was like, he looked at me like, oh, muted.
Everywhere in shale. Oil seems to pop up everywhere, in shale, under deserts and plains, and of course, underwater. But if oil is a fossil fuel, how did those fossils get under the ocean?
Good question. Show me, science man.
Hey Slick, Trace here for D News. Oil is a mystery. Scientists don't really 100% know where it came from or how it got underground.
Wait. We just read that National Geographic article. I closed out that tab like a ding-dong, but they do know where it came from. We know where it came from. It's fossil fuels. If things died. We know this. So wait. Okay, let's play.
Hey Slick, Trace here for D News. Oil is a mystery. Scientists don't really 100% know where it came from or how it got underground. But because we know about plate tectonics, we at least have some ideas of how it got under the ocean. Oil is what we call a fossil fuel. It comes from dead things, especially when there are a lot of them gathered in one place. It's true that oil famously comes from deserts, like on...
Did you see it? Did you see the cognitive dissonance? Did you see it? I hate to give you homework, but this man, Trace from D News, which is Discovery Channel News, I believe. I don't know. Watch this. Believe two different things that oppose each other, that are non-reconcilable at the same time. Try to believe something is wet and dry. It's called a paradox.
Hey Slick, Trace here for D News. Oil is a mystery. Scientists don't really 100% know where it came from or how it got...
Oil is a mystery. Science doesn't know where it came from or how it got underground. We have no idea.
Underground. But because we know about plate tectonics, we at least have some ideas of how it got under the ocean. Oil is what we call a fossil fuel. It comes from dead things, especially when there are a lot of them gathered in one place. It's true that oil...
So what's true here? Do they know how oil formed, and it formed by creatures? Or is it a mystery? Science? You know what? I don't know. So now my intellectual palate is sufficiently cleansed, and he can just input into my brain whatever lie he wants to, and I will just go, that's how it happened. They have no idea how oil formed. None. And there are theories about how oil formed that are not this. It's a truth. You can't question it. This theory is called the abiotic theory of oil. Oil may not be formed the way we think it is. It's our nature to sort, divide, and classify. By the way, this is U.S. news. This isn't Answers in Genesis. It's our nature to sort, divide, and classify. We label ourselves to identify political leanings, religious beliefs, the food we enjoy, the spirits the sports. Oh, that's weird. That we cheer. The oil industry too has its own distinct labels, which include the peak oil theorists, which we're going to go into next. Those who believe the world is fast depleting the finite supply of fossil fuel, and the pragmatists who recognize that engineering and technological advances in oil drilling and extraction continuously identify new reserves that make oil plentiful. Let me redefine that for you. We have the erroneous scientific consensus and belief system that isn't based on science or truth. And we have what we're learning as our instruments are getting better. And they're scrambling, like they do, like they're doing with all of this. How did the universe get here? The Big Bang's done. How did this is so exciting to cover this in real time. Their entire narrative is crumbling in front of us. What they're saying is that we have reality, and we have the thing that we told you. The thing that John D Rockefeller told you. The thing that the oil men want you to believe. Because if you have a finite amount of something, you can charge more for it. Supply and demand. This is called artificial scarcity. And by the way, it can be illegal. They've done a lot of you can't do monopoly things. You can't do this. Although Facebook and Gmail were built on it. Interesting. But anyways, you say, this is why the Babe Ruth card is so expensive. This is why there's one of them in the world. Oh, I'll buy it. It's like, I got to have that. There's only one. FOMO, right? It's like, I'm going to make a limited run. There's only 20. Well, there's only 20. I want to be one of the 20. Well, there's a finite amount of oil, and we're going to run out. We're definitely going to run out. Well, we could charge more because we're going to run out. Hey, I need that oil. I know it's running out, but I need it. I'll pay more. This is why they're doing it. Well, and to disprove the Bible. I know I've made that point, but anyways. So yeah, you've got the peak oil theorists. Let me go back to this. Peak oil theorists who believe the world is fast depleting the finite supply of fossil fuel. And the pragmatists, so the ones that look at logic and reason. Those who recognize, those who believe something that's not true, and those who are logically looking at this and recognize that science is continuously identifying new reserves that make oil plentiful. They both can't exist. Is it plentiful or is it finite? Which is it? I'm going to share something here that this came out of my video, the game show Fossil Fuel video, making the claim that that the oil basically the earth creates oil just naturally. It's some Minecraft thing that just creates oil. I can 100% confirm this. I've been in oil and gas for 13 years and have sat in meetings where oil wells refilling themselves was discussed. I said thank you, and he actually responded more. When we moved to the oil fields in North Dakota years ago, we were told by a local that this was their third boom. I thought that's so weird. It's supposed to run out completely, according to scientists. Found out then that oil naturally replenishes itself, and we've been told this lie. They sound like pragmaticists. Pragmatists? Whatever you'd say there. How do you say that word? Where is it? The people that... What did we find in that one show? That science or the truth is how we measure and how we define the measurement of reality, or something like that. So these are realists, right? And I'm sure I'm going to be called a conspiracy theorist. I hope this live stays up and we're all okay, but part of how I got in trouble on TikTok. So we have the people who use their logic and history and science, and then we have the believers of science. That's what we're at here. And there's a third group you may not know. These people are deeply interested in oil and its origins, but their advocacy of abiotic theory has many dismissing them as heretics, frauds, or idealists. Remember earlier, you tell them what to believe, and if they question you, you just gaslight them, bully them, and then censor them. These people are advocating for abiotic, not from life, oil, that has many dismissing them as heretics, frauds, or idealists. They hold, you know what's fun when you're in science and you come up with a theory? Like, I'm a heretic and a fraud of science. Like, so I guess that's funny to say. I am considered a heretic and a fraud by everyone that I talk to about the science that I believe in. I am like the heretic and fraud on TikTok of science because I don't believe in their theory. So I'm very familiar with this. And a lot of people would just give up. They'd go, oh yeah, I don't want to be a heretic or a fraud. That's not a good thing. I'm embracing it. They hold that oil can be derived from hydrocarbons that existed eons ago, there's that again, in massive pools deep within the Earth's core. That source of hydrocarbons seeps up through the Earth's layers and slowly replenishes oil sources. In other words, it turns the fossil fuel paradigm upside down. Perhaps the breakthrough for this theory came when Chris Cooper's story appeared in Wall Street Journal in 1999 about a field in Eugene Island. Here's an excerpt. Production at the oil field deep in the Gulf of Mexico off the coast of Louisiana was supposed to have declined years ago, and for a while it behaved like any normal field following its 1973 discovery. Eugene Island, 330s output. Why is it so hard to say? Eugene Island, 330s. Maybe that's the name of it. Output peaked at 15,000 barrels a day. By 1989, production had slowed to about 4,000 barrels per day. Then suddenly, some say almost inexplicably, Eugene Island's fortunes reversed. The field operated by Penn's Energy Co. is now producing 13,000 barrels a day, and probable reserves have rocketed to more than 400 million barrels from 60 million. Stranger still, this is really strange. It's strange when reality doesn't comport with our belief. Stranger still, scientists studying the field say the crude coming out of the pipe is of a geologic age quite different from the oil that gushed 10 years ago, according to Cooper. Thomas Gold, respected astronomer and professor emeritus at Cornell University, has held for years that oil is actually a renewable, primordial syrup continually manufactured by the Earth under ultra-hot conditions and tremendous pressures. As the substance migrates toward the surface, it is attacked by bacteria, making it appear to have an organic origin dating back to the dinosaurs. Remember that? All of which has led some scientists to a radical theory. Eugene Island is rapidly refilling itself, perhaps from some continuous source below the Earth's surface. That, they say, raises the tantalizing possibility that oil may not be the limited resource it is assumed to be. More recently, Forbes presented a similar discussion in 2008. It reported a group of Russian and Ukrainian scientists who say that oil and gas don't come from fossils. They're synthesized deep within the Earth's mantle by heat pressure and other purely chemical means. And this is what all of the science is saying. Actual science, not the belief of fear-based, trauma-based mind control, artificial scarcity, brought to you by a total huckster and swindler, Rockefeller. So on brand for him. They're synthesized deep within the Earth's mantle by heat and pressure. It's here. Under the so-called abiotic theory of oil, finding all the energy we need is just a matter of looking beyond the traditional basins where fossils might have accumulated. The idea that oil comes from fossils is a myth that needs changing, according to petroleum engineer Vladimir Kucherov. I doubt that's how you say that. Kucherov. That sounded better. Speaking at the Royal Institute of Technology in Sweden. I hope he's doing all right. All kinds of rocks could have oil and gas deposits. Okay. I will give Rockefeller that maybe in 1893 he didn't know. That's the best I can give him. So, hey, we don't know. We'll see what time says. Maybe down the road we'll be wrong. But for now, finite supply, charge as much as you want. The Bible isn't true, right? Super effective. Now, taking this idea and just putting it in the textbooks. Hey, fossil fuels are made by dinosaurs, or they aren't, or whatever. It's fine. You go to school, you're taught that, but you forget about it. Now you're paying $4 a gallon. You're like, this sucks. Why am I paying $4 a gallon? No, the propaganda has to go much deeper than this. This is where Rockefeller, having the education system, right? These are his schools teaching you that where the fossils came from, or where the fossil fuel came from. And then you have the scientists, and you have the media. And boy, does the media do their part. This is the peak oil propaganda, fear, crisis that I remember as a child dealing with. Why are gas prices so high? Well, we're running out of oil. It's going to happen. It's fine. This is happening. They've been using this card, and they'll keep using it. Like, he's got that button. He just is going to mash it till it wears out. He's not going to be like, well, this isn't working anymore. I'm going to have mercy now. The end of cheap oil. This is a article from March, Scientific American. Okay. Peer-reviewed. Is it peer-reviewed? Because if our scientists didn't sign off on it, it's not science. Yeah, well, the Scientific American is like one of the peer-reviewed publications. Well, our magazine, Science Popularizer, or whatever, but it's got merit. It's bona fide. But they're totally wrong yet again, just like National Geographic and all those kids shows. Just totally wrong, flat out lying, or just wrong, bad science, whatever. March of 1998. It's a good year. Might have been my last year snowboarding, actually, now that I think about it. Might have been a bad month for old Luke. Let's see here. In 1973, 1979, a pair of sudden prices. Oh, wait, let's do it. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I got to start to land this airplane. The end of cheap oil. The end of cheap oil. It's going to end. You liked cheap oil? Well, it's ending. Global production of conventional oil will begin to decline sooner than most people think. Probably within 10 years. This hasn't aged well. See, 20 years, it'd been 25 years ago. It's like they make all the predictions about the ocean levels. We're going to be in 10 years. We're going to be underwater, and blah, blah, all this stuff's going to happen. Not aging well. I say on my live show quite a bit on TikTok that you can learn someone's character, like what they're about, by observing them over time. This is why I say that the scientific narrative pays cash. I don't have... I the opposite of feel indebted to them, that I need to trust them. I don't trust known liars. This whole theory, deep time, evolution, Darwin, all this stuff, frauds, forgeries, lies. I've done a bunch of videos about them. Haeckel and Nebraska Man, Oda Banga, maniacs. Gotta trust them. No, I don't. Pair of sudden price increases. In 73 and 79, a pair of sudden price increases rudely awakened the industrial world to its dependence on cheap crude oil. There was a Arab embargo, and then they doubled again when Iran dethroned Shah. Many analysts warned that these crises provide the world many analysts warned that these crises proved that the world would soon run out of oil. Yet they were wrong. Their dire predictions were emotional and political reactions. Even at the time, the oil experts knew that they had no scientific basis. A few years earlier, oil explorers had discovered enormous amounts of oil. By 73, the world had consumed, according to many experts, best estimates, only about 1/8 of its endowment of readily accessible crude oil. Using several different... let's see what to say here. Next oil crunch will... Here we go. The next oil crunch will not be so temporary. Our analysis of the discovery and production of oil fields around the world suggests that within the next decade, the supply of conventional oil will be unable to keep up with demand. This conclusion contradicts the picture one gets from oil industry reports, which boasted of whatever billion barrels. So, basically, see, unfortunately, Okay, so what you have here is the very easily accessible manipulation of data to fit a narrative. And science does this a ton. Very, very little truth. I would say outside of the Word of God and Jesus as Messiah, very little truth. A lot of manipulation of data. I have to be very discerning. This peak oil thing, if you're my age or older, you remember it. You remember the gas lines. You remember the discussion. I want to show you about a 3-minute piece. I actually was watching this today for my research, and I had recorded it on my phone screen, recorded it. And I came in after I was at the park with my son, and my wife was watching this. I told her to stop it after like 3 or 4 minutes or something, and she was just totally engaged watching this. And she was engaged watching this because this is from 1973. You can see right here, 1973. This is 50 years old on the button. And it is aging very well. It's exactly the same tactic. The reason she was watching it so intently is she's like, that's like watching the news today. It's the same thing. The guy speaking with a British accent. That's not British. Very slowly. Very dramatic. Just history stories that they tell you. Just propaganda. Goebbels would be proud. Not Goebbels, Bernays. Bernays would be proud. We're going to watch this discussion about the oil prices. They're expert. It's going to be about 2 minutes. And then I want to show you what they're still saying about peak oil. And then we're going to try and land this thing. It's probably going to be about 30, maybe 30 more minutes. Hopefully 25. Stick with me. I probably don't have to take a whatever journalist personality guy's take and then give my own take on top of his take. As many takes as I could say in a short amount of time. But whoever this guy is, some dude, he's like, well, I talked to a lot of people about this, and I've told other people, and they listen to me, and I say things. Jones, I think that's his name. Did you see him invoke Pearl Harbor there? You know, with the whole 1/6 thing. Worse than 9/11, right? You hear this. Oh, Pearl Harbor. This is Pearl Harbor all over again. What does that do? Why would he say Pearl Harbor? Just recently enough, people go, that was bad. Pearl Harbor was bad. This is bad. This is trauma-based mind control, fear, whatever you want to call this tactic. Well, this is going to be Pearl Harbor Part 2. We're going to run out of oil. This is bigger from America than, whatever. Would list whatever recent contrived thing had happened. Listen to this guy.
This is a Pearl Harbor again.
All right. Very apropos. This will always work, right? You come up with a narrative. You tell them what to believe. You tell them how to believe. And then you just use propaganda to reinforce their fears. And people are just like, yeah, so I got to pay $5 a gallon. We're going to run out. We're basically out of oil. I'm so thankful I have a gallon of oil that's renewing and infinite. They're always going to do it. It's always going to work. Okay. A couple more things here. Then we're going to do the biblical take and get out. Peak oil. Is this a real thing? Oh, actually, watch this. If you think they're done with the peak oil thing.
Oil. The black gold that is the fuel behind our civilization. Everything we produce is dependent on it. Without oil, humanity would cease to exist. No energy, food supply deliveries, no medicine, transportation, or everything else we need in our daily life. Now, we face an overlooked and gigantic problem. We are running out of it, and we are running out fast. Not oil in general, but the cheap, accessible oil. What will happen when the supplies get short? Let's find out. And welcome to Dark New World.
Yeah. Without oil, humanity wouldn't exist. Sure, we existed basically without it before. Do you mean that it would be really bad and a lot of people would die, but we'd probably make it? Anyways, it's like It's time to give up the peak oil thing. It's not a thing, okay? It's time to just say we were wrong and move on. But they're not. They're still beating that drum. Why not? You get a few more years out of this thing. Education, they still have it in the textbooks. They're still using it with the media. Okay, peak oil, the point in time when domestic or global oil production peaks and begins to forever decline has been looming on the horizon for decades. Countless research reports, government studies, and oil industry analysis have tried to pin down the exact year when peak oil work will occur, but to no avail. This is from 2011. The stakes are high. We're inexorably linked to a readily supply of oil, blah, blah, blah. In October 1973, the world was roiled by the OPEC embargo. That's what I just showed there. The oil embargo lasted only 5 months. It sent shockwaves to the industry. It basically, you end up with these things where they introduce the idea and they shock you with it. This is what they've always done. And then they dial it back. And then they reintroduce it again, but a little bit less severe. And then they dial it back. And then they introduce it proper and you just deal with it. This is how they got this pulled off. I'm sure 73 was synthetic. I haven't researched it, but just knowing how they work, they made up a 73 thing to scare everybody. Then they dialed it back. And they did it again in 79 to scare everybody. And then that's when we used to pay 15 cents a gallon or 60 cents a gallon or 30 or whatever. And then it was like, yeah, you pay $2 a gallon. And that's just what it is. It's just how this reality works. Well, they're doing the same thing now. Remember 2020 and this thing and that thing. I'm not going to speak on them. And then the prices spiked to like $7 and then went back down to $3.50 and then like $5 and down to $3 and then it's like, oh, now it's $4. Like, that's just what we pay now. It's always going to work. Many government leaders and academic institutions. Oh, good thing the academic institutions were involved. How do you control a world? Government leaders, academic institutions, and the media. That's it. Realized, even after the embargo ended, that the global oil economy couldn't last forever. What is the connection, other than a narrative? What is the connection? They politically stopped this thing? There should be more oil. They stopped it. There's more oil. Nope. Didn't you see how scary that was? It was like Pearl Harbor. It's Pearl Harbor. So now, you know we're going to run out of oil. See? Logic. You could go mad researching this stuff. Oh, I've got to protect my brain. Years earlier, this guy at the Shell Oil predicted that oil in the lower 48 states would peak around 1970. Okay, so the guy worked for Shell Oil. That makes sense. That's probably good for business. Though his comments generated much controversy, he was later vindicated. And also now he's totally wrong. He wasn't vindicated. When institutions such as the National Academy of Sciences, bona fide, and Energy Information Agency confirmed that his now famous bell curve predicting the 1970 peak was correct. Well, that was in 2011. 2015. Now in 2022, peak oil, the perennial prophecy that went wrong. Peak oil, hypothetical point when global production maximizes, enters an irreversible decline, has been the holy grail of resource economics for decades, prized and just as elusive. Recently, technological development, including increased digitization, has altered conventional understanding associated with peak oil. Like other consumable resources, peak oil is grounded in reality. Of course, oil is a finite natural resource produced over a geologic time span where demand continues to climb. However, peak oil could also become a self-fulfilling prophecy, inadvertently misinforming the public. Inadvertently, my ass. I try to do these shows and not say a word like that, but it is in the Bible. Not mine specifically. This is frustrating for me. Inadvertently misinforming the public. You think that dude for Shell and the National Institute of Academy of Super Religious Science Priests, when they confirmed his bell curve, it was an accident? You think any of this is an accident? It makes people afraid and allows them to charge whatever they want to for the thing that actually is like the most important global bartering chip in the world? Petroleum? You think any of this is an accident? Let me give you what I think. I think that when these people took control, they always were in control, They work for the devil, and they know what they had to actually control, which is what we believe about how the universe got here, what we believe about how the earth got here, what we believe human is, what we believe about if we can trust the Bible, what we believe about space, what space is, what we believe about medicine, how we educate our kids. It's a full spectrum plan. They're not misinforming anybody accidentally. When I say everything you were taught is wrong, buy the shirt. And when I say misinformation and pseudoscience, that when they tell you that Darwin has been proven true and that the Big Bang has happened and that fossil fuels, it's misinformation and pseudoscience. Okay? Constantly wrong. Oh, convergent evolution. Nope, mitochondrial leaf. Oh, cells are just nothing. Oh, nope, super complicated. Everything came from material processes. Oh, we have information. Oh, things get better over time. Nope, they get worse over time. You can just go down the list. Wrong, 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 wrong. You gotta believe it. It's a new song. Wrong, wrong, wrong. We're wrong, but you gotta believe it. That's what they do. Okay. This is fun. It's okay, computer. Calm down. Listen to me. Science. Visualizing the world's deepest oil well. Ever wondered just how far down oil companies drill for oil? Well, here it is. Z44 Caevo well. World's deepest well. There's the submarine. I should, maybe I'll hit the algorithm because I said the word submarine. Maybe there's billionaires in that submarine. Okay, this is the Burj Khalifa, which used to be called Burj Dubai. In Dubai, very tall building. Doesn't look like a building in this picture. Looks like a jouster. Going down 20,000 feet. The lowest hot air balloon, apparently. Oh, wait. They're saying how high it would be. Anyways, the highest they go, 21,000 feet. Highest clouds, 28,000 feet. Mount Everest, 29,000 feet. Airplane, 39,000 feet. Z44 shy of a well, 40,000 feet. That's a deep, deep well. That's very deep. It's like 8 miles. How far down is it? Deep. Look at it, goes down like. Okay. Well, made of fossils, right? Fossil fuels. So apparently there's 40,000 feet of Earth that showed up. The oceans 400 million years ago were 40,000 feet further down or something, whatever they believe. And then 40,000 feet of new Earth came in. So if the oil is formed in fossils, you would think maybe you would find fossils down here, right? 40,000 feet. Corresponding to what organic theory supporters have admitted themselves, petroleum is a fossil fuel. And there's never been a real fossil found below 16,000 feet. Yep. I mean, just if you're into science and fact and logic and being a pragmatic thinker, whatever, you got a problem here. That's a third as deep. Damn near. 2.5 times. Which would make sense. I mean, that's a deep fossil. That's a lot of flood sediment that ended up on top of that fossil. 16,000 feet. And they're finding oil at 40,000 feet. Why? Because it's not fossils. Just not. Just what it is. Ooh, I hope I showed that. I don't know if I shared that. If I didn't, take my word for it. Whatever. Okay, next thing I'll show. Oil is everywhere. It's everywhere. This is a guy on YouTube who smelled oil. Oh, I'll start here. And started looking, and he dug a 2-foot hole. It's filled with oil. 2 feet. So that's some funny fossils. Fossils. I don't know. Remember the heat and the pressure? They died 400 million years ago, which is at the surface level still. It's 400 million years ago this died and was covered up by a foot of heat. Where's the heat coming from? Probably freezes and pressure. Or no, maybe it just formed way lower and bubbled up. Who cares? Just whatever they want to believe. But then he drives over the road a little bit to the same kind of area. Here he goes. That's him in his car. And here is the effervescent fossil bubbling pools. Now, when they used to call this bitumen, they knew it was everywhere. The ancient Egyptians used it. Everybody used it. It's oil. They took them a while to light it on fire, but it's like we're in Minecraft, and God was like, yeah, you need oil. Trust me, you're going to need that. I mean, we'll give you the sun, and you'll figure out some other things, but this thing is going to really help you out. Just oil bubbling up. And I found a bunch of these. I shared one in our Discord in the desert, just pouring down, just like this desert mountain. It's everywhere. It's not made by fossils. I mean, that's just anecdotal. I get that, but okay. So this is what I'll end it on. I'm going to talk about the Bible for a minute, and then I'm going to wrap. So either Rockefeller read the Bible, and him and his scientists, and said, well, let's just spin a different story. Or they made up a story and didn't check with the Bible, because they're not compatible. I would say God in his brilliance, I'm making a claim here, that God intentionally wrote into the book for a time such as this to know that the deep time lie and trying to use fossil fuels to bolster their anti-God, you can't trust the Bible story. He put this in here because you just read the book. I love the Bible in real time. Noah and the flood. Okay, this is before the flood. God said to Noah, I'm going to put an end to all people. Make yourself an ark of cypress wood, make rooms in it, and coat it with pitch, inside and out. Pitch. It's waterproofing. Now, I don't think I pulled this up, but it's, let's see here, biblical, let's see, pitch in ancient times. Pitch was traditionally used to help caulk the seams of wooden sailing vessels. How did ancients make pitch? You could do it through partial burning of wood or out of charcoal. That's a possibility. But a tar-like substance. Pitch in medieval times. Classical pitch. Yeah, that's going to get other things. Anyways, you can research this. Pitch can be formed. Like, you burn charcoal, burn wood, and you can make pitch. But bitumen was also pitch. I almost want to pull that up to show you. I'm going to pull that up. Pitch and bitumen. See if that'll do it. Pitch, naturally occurring asphalt bitumen. A type of pitch is a polymer. Bitumen and pitch, highly viscous liquids which appear solid. Pitch may be made from petroleum or plant sources. Petroleum-derived pitch is also known as bitumen, whereas plant-derived pitch is known as resin. So I think you can make a pretty strong argument here that they had these pools of bitumen. Noah's building a big ark. Sure, maybe he was burning oil or burning coal and making it out of plants and stuff. Or maybe he walked over to this bubbling thing. We knew where it was, and that's what God had him use. I believe the pitch was petroleum or some version of this bitumen. Which, if so, young earth creationists who say that the oils were petroleum was formed in the flood, how do you form something in the flood before the flood happens? Right? There's kind of this apologetic thing to say that oil was formed in the flood. I believe coal was formed in the flood, but I believe that pitch is in here intentionally, showing that oil existed before the flood, meaning that it was always here. It's an innate, organic process, chemical process of the earth. It's just the blood of the earth. It's just forming, whatever. They said for a long time that the flood, the fossil fuel was from dinosaurs. Well, Job 40:15. Look at Behemoth, which I made along with you, which feeds on grass like an ox, what strength it has in its loins, what power it has in the muscles of its belly, its tail sways like a cedar. In the video I'm making, I show the sauropod while I'm reading that. Very likely it's a Alamosaurus or some sort of sauropod. But I think God intentionally put in here. Look at Behemoth, which I made along with you. Very specific. Dinosaurs, if this is a dinosaur, which many of us believe, he's very specific that he made the dinosaurs along with man. So, I think you can make an argument just in these two scriptures that petroleum existed before the flood, and God said, get the petroleum, get the pitch, put it on the ark. And dinosaurs were with man. I made them with you. So this idea that, and I know that they've changed it from it was dinosaurs, but it's not dinosaurs now. They still believe it was the plants and stuff that the dinosaurs ate. I could show a handful of videos that it was in that time frame or up to that time frame. So the idea that oil is dinosaurs that existed 300 to 400 million years ago is not compatible with the Bible. And I think the Bible, if you want to check it against Rockefeller's theory, whatever, propaganda, they're not compatible. And I believe it's because Rockefeller wanted to invoke the two things that work really well for him. Don't believe the Bible. And I'm going to control you now. And it's easier because rather than being made in the image of God and understanding your inalienable rights under the living God, you're just an animal in a meaningless universe. He wants over and over and over and over and over and over to reinforces. He does. The people in charge want to. I'm going to show you a clip from the Book of Eli. Very likely YouTube is going to take this down. But if you haven't seen the Book of Eli, you need to see it. I watched it the first time. I was in a very secular mind frame at the time. I want to watch it again. It's brilliant. This is Gary Oldman's character explaining how the only way he can control the world is if he gets the Bible and he controls the narrative of the Bible, including, I would say, what Rockefeller is doing here, which is telling you can't believe the Bible. As being Rockefeller, with this controlling the narrative thing. I need that book. I need the book. Why? I know its power. Ne'er has more truth been spoken in a movie, possibly. People would understand what they're doing here. This is what is at stake. If you're watching this on YouTube and they cut this out, this company can share it. I can't, I'm sure. Gary Oldman representing whoever, like I said earlier, they're Agent Smiths. It could be Rockefeller, it could be guys today, whoever, doesn't matter. They die, somebody else carries the baton in this relay to a new world order. Give me the book. I need the book. I know its power. People will know what they're doing here. They will know that they are children of the Most High God on His created earth and what they think matters. They could move mountains. Give me the book. There's going to be a cuss word in here. Be warned. I'll try and bleach. He's making them use soap and washing their hands. He also probably got that from the Bible. The Bible discussed germ theory.
Put a crew together. We're going after him.
For a fucking book.
For a book.
It's not a book. One small town. We have to have it.
It really takes some of the edge off, but people don't like when the bad words come out. So, if we want to rule more than one small effing town, we have to have it. I get it. I'm crazy. But archetypally, Gary Oldman is playing the role of John D. Rockefeller. Get rid of the book, and we can control the people. Every one of these kids-friendly science episodes. 400 million years ago, dinosaurs, 400. I used to imagine when my mom or dad would put gas in the car that it was dinosaur blood or something, so what we were taught. What a perfect thing for them to pull off. What a perfect thing for them to pull off. The Bible isn't trustworthy. Forget the book. Doesn't matter who God is, who you are, how the universe got here. Believe our version. And we're going to just control you now. And we're going to take all your money. And we're going to take your heating, your car, everything that you buy, all the petroleum product, everything. We're going to gouge you because, hey, we have the truth about this stuff here. Even though we have no idea, or we do know, and we're blatantly lying to you. And we're going to use propaganda to enforce this in your mind for 130 years. This has worked for 130 years. And now, as the scientific instrumentation and understanding is coming to fruition, they're changing the narrative. They can't keep this thing going any longer. They can't. Peak oil's a lie. Whole thing's a lie. They can't do it. So they're going to start to phase it out. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. They're just going to phase it out and walk out the side door. Hey, they're going to be like, you believed that? You believed in peak oil? Stupid. You believe the earth makes oil. We got a bunch of it, but we can't use it now, or something like that, right? We can't. It's worthless. It's worthless, but we don't need it anymore because you can't use your car. You can't use your car, or whatever they're going to do. They'll use this as long as they can, bleed us vampirically as long as they can, and eventually they'll just go, hey, we were wrong, but it doesn't matter. You got to trust us anyways, because good science is wrong, and we're good at science. Nothing new under the sun. Okay, to wrap, I would say, trust the book. You want to take down Gary Oldman? Get the book in your hands. The book is the key. The book is our hope, the Word of God. The written account, the written historical account, scientific historical account of the author of this creation. And anyone who comes after the book, they're paying cash. No credit lines extended. All right. Thank you for tuning in. Love you. End transmission.